Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Venegas, and you're listening to King County Recovery Conversations, a place to celebrate recovery and help break the stigma of addiction and mental health. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Bill Goodgion, the Executive Director, and Krissy and Olga, two members of Recovery Beyond.
Yeah. Hi, Heather. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I'm glad to have Krissy and Olga with me. So I thought it would be interesting to have two members of our community, not only members, but they're also both peer leads, and Olga is also part of our peer advisory council. I'll talk about both of those a little bit more. So maybe just quickly about Recovery Beyond and what we do at a very high level. At Recovery Beyond, we believe that the outdoors and recovery are for everyone. It's really important to us. So we believe in strengthening connection and recovery through outdoor activities. Not only outdoor activities, but we just know what a powerful and transformative catalyst the outdoors can be in recovery. So we'll talk a little bit more about our programs, but maybe just want to introduce Krissy and Olga. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and your experience with Recovery Beyond.
Okay. Yeah, and a little about your recovery story. That would be fabulous.
Okay. Do you want me to? I'll get started. My name is Olga, and thank you so much for having us here today. That's an awesome opportunity to talk about recovery and just our organization that I love so much. So I'm Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine, raised in Ukraine, but I was growing up, I was an athlete. I was a tennis player. So I traveled a lot. I lived in different places, and my recovery story, my story with the substances is that, I started using substances, including alcohol, when I was young. But I was an athlete, so I was in a very structured environment. I had goals, I had things going on. Still, I thought, I wasn't, I was sometimes all over the place, and just kind of the, especially when I came to the U.S., when I was young and I was away from my family a lot. So that was kind of a stressful period in my life. And I think going through some mental health issues, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and also ADHD. So all of that coming to the U.S. and going to college. So I played for college here, played tennis for college. It was a stressful period in my life. It was amazing, but there was a lot of changes going on. And after I stopped playing actively and I was teaching tennis, it was different life. There was a lot of open space that I had to fill, and just also traumas that never were processed for different reasons that were in my life, and I turned to substances. It was different things, whatever I could get my hands on. I felt like I wanted to try everything. I was so free-spirited. I just wanted, I was in a very structured environment, and now I could do like whatever I wanted. I wasn't under very strict parental control that I had all my life. Also probably having substance abuse history in my family contributed to me not being able to handle substances well. My dad, I think it was going through my dad's line. So my dad had issues with substances, particularly alcohol. He didn't ever try anything else because I think he knew that he couldn't handle, if he couldn't handle alcohol, even though I don't think he was. Oh, he knew towards the end of his life. He definitely knew it was his problem. But I struggled with it. I went through some very dark periods in my life after college. I felt very isolated, very alone with it. In 2019, when I went back home to Ukraine, I went through probably one of the darkest periods in my life in terms of especially being very isolated and alone and using substances. It wasn't ever something particular. Like it was just like when I was in Ukraine, mostly the stimulants that I was using and abusing. And I was, by the end, I was really on my own. It wasn't even, it started as a party thing, going out, being fun, and it ended with me being isolated and alone. And basically, really, when I wasn't homeless just because I had parents that were actually busy with work at that time. I was about 23 years old, and I was living with them in Ukraine. And I was basically on the streets because using was the only thing I was really doing. That was my daily activity, something I had to get, something I had to use, and then every day was the same. And then my parents realized that something was wrong, and they got me, in Ukraine, there's a thing where there's rehabs where you get, when you get into them, they can lock you. It's basically like a prison where you don't have a choice. If they brought you in, they signed you in, you don't have a choice. And I think actually that was a good thing for me because I said I wanted to, I realized I'm not doing well, and I said I wanted to get better, but it wasn't in my plans anytime soon. And honestly, at that point, it was every time, it was like next week, I'm ready, but that's going to be next week. I still have a stash. So I have to go through it. And then that's when we'll go, right? That's when things going to get better. But so that wasn't going to happen. I don't know. I didn't think it was going to happen. And my dad in particular, he made sure I got there, and he locked me there. I wasn't happy about it, but I don't know if I would have even survived if I didn't get in there. That's where I was at that point. I was there for about 2 months in rehab. Then I came out, and I stopped using, like you would say, hard substances, but I still struggled with a substance called kratom. It was something that helped me kind of not think about hard drugs, but it was really ruining my life still. So I came to the US going to the most recent events is when I came back to the US in 2020. So it was with my fiance, and we, when we came here, I mean, it was still COVID, right? 2020 still was COVID, and there wasn't a lot of people that I could get to know. It was a new place. So I moved to Washington State. We moved to Washington State, and I didn't know a lot of people. I was still using kratom, but it was ruining my relationship with my husband. And I think he was actually when I made the decision to really step into recovery and really recover is when I realized that if I wasn't going to do it, we weren't going to be with my husband, because we were going to get married here when we got here, but it wasn't going anywhere because, I was sort of functional, but I wasn't present in my life. I wasn't dealing with, I was absent really. So in 2021 is when I heard about Recovery Beyond from one of the long-term original members, Scott Brown. And he posted online about it. He posted about his own recovery, that he's been in long-term recovery now, and that this organization has been his biggest support. And I thought that's when I read about Recovery Beyond, when I found out what the mission of the Recovery Beyond is, I thought that this is something, I really felt relieved that there's something like that there that I can be a part of and hopefully get healthy again. So in 2021 is when in New Year's, I decided that was my best way to just stop everything is New Year's Day. It was like new start, new year. And for me, actually, it worked. I know that some people would say that they would do that and then end up. But for me, it worked. I worked to stop substances because it's the first step, right, in recovery, to stop. And then I reached out again to Scott, and he invited me to join. And when I joined, I joined Recovery Beyond as a volunteer and as a member too. So I was teaching. Because I've been an athlete. For one of the biggest things is I know that I wanted to stay active. I wanted to get outdoors. I already, even when I was like using Kratom, I still went outdoors a lot. I realized that was my kind of saving grace, going into the mountains and hiking, and that made me happy. So I knew that that's something I wanted to continue doing. But here, Recovery Beyond offered it as like structured activities that other people in recovery were attending, and you had that chance to actually connect. So that was really, I can't even emphasize how important that was for me, because I felt alone in this, and here there were other people that were like-minded, also wanted to stay active and wanted to be outdoors. So and then since 2021, I've been with Recovery Beyond, and thankfully feeling better with every year in my recovery. Because, honestly, initially when I quit, I thought, okay, I quit. This is my problem, right? This is when I stop it, it's all gonna fall into place, right? I'm a good person, so everything's gonna fall back into place. But
I remember that.
I think it's so like that. It didn't right away, but that hard work was not as hard when you can share it, and you can share it with other people, right, and they understand.
Absolutely.
And like even now, that moment, like we know people who've been through it know that feeling that yes, first it's so hard because all the issues stay with you and you have to work through them. And I'm still working through them. That's why it's a journey. So but being part of Recovery Beyond was just, I think, it was a really good thing for me here, being in a new place. So I'm thankful I'm part of it. I became a mom. We got married, so that was good. First, after I was sober for a couple months, and we got married, and then in a year I got pregnant, and that's what we wanted. We wanted to have a family, and if I wasn't sober, then that wouldn't have been a case. So in recent years I've been still an active member, and but not as much, because I've been doing so much being a mom took so much space in my life. But the amazing thing about this is just nobody is like, when I was absent, I could always feel like I could come back to it. Right. And I had other staff members reaching out to me, asking, how am I doing? Nobody, I felt like before, when I was an athlete, I had to be very disciplined, and if I didn't do something, that I could feel that people are mad at me. But here, I wasn't present. But I was accepted right away as soon as I was ready to come back, and I was accepted. I was welcomed, and that felt so nice and important for me, because I went through some tough times still through these years in recovery, but being able, having that support system in place that I can still go back to and give, also not think about myself as much, just give and be a volunteer, so that really that's a really amazing thing. Yeah, I think I'm done talking.
Thank you, Olga. That's wonderful.
Words, but that's just kind of my short even that was a short story of my recovery. So I'll give a word to Krissy.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing. I'm Krissy. I am a person in long-term recovery. I've been sober for over 8 years now. I got sober in March of 2016 after struggling with addiction from age 15 to 27. Started off young, drinking, smoking weed, then experimenting with other things. Kind of was a revolving door with the legal system, and just never found that moment of wanting to change. It just, when something didn't seem to work, I want to try the next thing, and kind of just had that mindset, was like, oh, well, I'm getting in trouble over drinking. Let's try something harder. And just never was willing to give up, even after many run-ins with the legal system. It wasn't until heroin came around and into my social circle, and people were overdosing and passing away, that I realized that if I didn't change, that I would also probably end up as a statistic of heroin. And so I begun the process of reaching out for help, and finally I had started enough conversations with people and had that the process of rehab opened, that when I did eventually get in trouble with the legal system again, that I was already willing and ready to go. And so I went to a rehab in South Carolina. I went to a 6-month Christian rehab, and I have been sober since. And I think having a long-term rehab really helped me just process everything, work through some trauma, get the drugs and alcohol completely out of my system, and start to live life without them, which was extremely challenging. It is not just you get rid of the substances and everything's all gravy, like Olga was saying. No, it's
I
like
know, damn it.
you have to change. You have to change every single thing about your life, and that was really hard. I went back to my hometown in Durango, Colorado, and had to change my entire social network. I mean, which was a good thing. I'm not going to say I had many friends at that point in my life, but I just dove into work. I am now just a workaholic, and I did that for many years, just trying to rebuild my life. And eventually I started getting into the outdoors and fell in love with hiking. I had gotten involved in other recovery communities and started building connections where I had people that I could go to when I needed people, and then also learned how to be comfortable by myself, because I am a codependent person. So when I had to break up with my whole life in addiction, I had to learn how to be okay alone as well. That even though I'm a people pleaser, I can't make everybody happy, and unless I'm happy myself. So it was a hard reality to accept these huge changes in my life, and then also navigate sobriety. I think when I got involved in the outdoors and really started going farther places and climbing different mountains and just seeing how big the world was and how small all of my problems were in comparison, it was I never want to not be able to experience something like this. And so I moved to Seattle last May, so in 2023. And when I decided that I was going to relocate to be closer to family, I knew I needed to find a community to get involved with, because I really only knew a handful of people here. And I know how important making those connections are, especially somebody in recovery,
Right.
when you're going to a huge city, and how easily people relapse when they don't know what to do and they have too much free time, or they isolate themselves too much. And so I was involved in a program through the Phoenix in Durango, and I figured that if small town Durango of 17,000 people had a branch of the Phoenix program, figured Seattle probably also had that. Well, little to find out that their movement isn't as strong as I thought it would be here, but there was activity on their on the app, and it was from the old director of Recovery Beyond, and she was promoting Recovery Beyond. Come check us out, look at our calendar, see what we're doing. And I went to the website and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I had seen that they just did a retreat on, I think it was Whidbey Island. And they were hosting hikes and river rafting or floating, and just all these different things. And I was like, this is awesome, because this is what I need. And so when I moved up here, I reached out. I was welcomed with open arms. I went, and the first event that I went to was a summer solstice hike to Poo Poo Point with Mark, and he had texted me that day and asked if I was still going. I was like, yep, I have every intention on it. And he had told me that it would just be him and I, because everybody else was hiking Mount St. Helens. And I was like, oh, what? I'm like, well, shoot, how do I get involved in that? I'm like, well, I guess I'll still go, even though Mount St. Helens sounds a lot better. But so I went, and I really enjoyed learning more about Recovery Beyond. It was nice just kind of have the inside scoop, because Mark was a staff member. And so I learned a lot about the organization. And then eventually I just went on as many events that I could. And I was offered to try out for their yearly event. It was the Audacious
annual expedition. Yeah.
Annual expedition, which was dog sledding and cross-country skiing in the northern boundary waters of Minnesota. And I was like, at first I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I don't like the cold. That's why I moved away from Colorado to get away from like a harsh winter, and came to Seattle where it was a little milder. And then after learning more about it and attending the first meeting with the Outward Bound and learning, I was like, you know what, maybe that does sound kind of cool. And would I ever have that opportunity outside of Recovery Beyond to accept a gift like that? And I was like, okay, well, I'll go for it. We worked all summer long doing the Summer Sweat Challenge, and then we did the Tough Mudder to qualify to go on the yearly event, and it was amazing. And I just am so grateful that opportunity came across my plate, because I connected with some people who now I can say that I have like a family and friends in Seattle that I can reach out to at any time and be able to do things outside of Recovery Beyond with. This year, one of their big things was reintroducing the mountaineering program, which I was super excited for, and still am super excited about it. But we just recently hiked Mount Adams, and it was the past 4 months we've been training, and it was way harder than I thought it was going to be. And I don't know if I took everything very serious at first, but now I'm like, okay, I know what's going on now. I understand the importance of all of the lessons that were taught. And it was an amazing hike, and we turned it into a backpacking trip. And if I were to hike Mount Adams again, I would not turn it into a backpacking trip. I would try and do it in one day, and we lucked out because now Mount Adams, I don't know if it's still closed, but it was
because of the smoke.
Yep. It unfortunately has a wildfire near it and has been closed to hikers. And so we really lucked out with our timing, and it was an awesome event and series that was put on. And yeah, I just am grateful to stumble upon Recovery Beyond and be able to be here and share about how awesome it's been and how much it's helped my transition to Seattle. And I have met so many amazing people through this program.
Thank you.
Krissy.
Yeah.
I'm really touched that both of you mentioned like moving to Washington from either outside the country or outside the state into Seattle, and that you both found community and connection and Recovery Beyond. And that is such an important thing for all of us in recovery. And I kind of feel like we're really like blessed, because can you imagine if I was a normie and I was moving, like, how would I find my people? I did that. When I got into recovery 30 years ago, I was living in Seattle and I got intervened on, and I went to California to go to treatment. That's where I grew up and my family is, and I stayed down there for about 2 years, and then I moved back to Seattle because I was homesick for the seasons and the mountains and the sound and just the beauty. And I did that same thing, right? I got connected with people in Seattle before I left California, so that when I landed, I had that support built around me. And it just is so amazing. And I love like all the activities and opportunities that you provide for our community, Bill. Could you share a little bit about the history, how Recovery Beyond started, and just things you'd like people to know?
Yeah,
how they
sure.
can get involved?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just want to thank Krissy and Olga. I mean, you can see why I brought them with me. I mean, they're both amazing.
Amazing.
I mean, I know their stories, and I'm enthralled, and just listening to them, I could have listened to them both go a lot longer. So thank you. So Recovery Beyond originally started in 2011 as a partnership with Union Gospel Mission, and it was really focused on helping people in homelessness and addiction. And the original program was called Climbing Out of Homelessness, and their focus was putting people through a 10-month program and climbing Mount Rainier, which is, talk about an audacious goal. That's a big goal for anyone, someone who's struggling with homelessness and potentially addiction, even much larger. And for several years, that was the focus. But as you can imagine, over time, there's a limited number of people that you can reach with a model like that. And so the model expanded, and in 2016 became Recovery Beyond, and we became a nonprofit at that point, and started introducing new activities and adventures. And then unfortunately in 2020, COVID hit, and here we are. We're all about movement and getting people outside and doing cool things, and everybody's locked up. So that made it a challenge for a couple of years there, where we just didn't have any events and activities other than virtual events, and people from our staff and from the community trying to connect with members really however they could. And then as things started to open up, we really just started putting things on the calendar, anything and everything that would get people out of their house and doing something and meeting with other people. And, we continue to evolve and listen to our members and listen to our peer leads, and the peer advisory council, which I can talk about. But now, we talk a lot about programs with purpose, like the mountaineering program is one of several types of events and activities that we offer during the year, but it has a very planned structure behind it. It's not just put something on the calendar and hope some, people show up to that event. So it started with safety and education and training, and it was very structured, and it was all planned before we ever started, with the end goal that even if Krissy didn't want to listen and pay attention, she said that everything that we were doing was all about leading towards that last climb on Mount Adams, to prepare everybody for that. And that's how we think about events and activities now. It starts with kind of honestly, like we think about really cool, fun things that we want to do, like the staff want to do. Like, is that something we would participate in and get excited about? And if you get that same feeling, then we kind of think our members will too. And now our model has changed, where we have a lot more volunteer-led activities, where volunteers and members are coming to us and saying, like, we have an activity, we do cold plunges now. And that wasn't something that the staff came up with, and we went out and said, hey, can someone help us with cold plunges? Someone came to us and said, I want to volunteer to lead this. We have sailing now, which is fantastic. And we talked about this before the show. Like, if we had to do that and pay someone for sailing instructions for our members, it would be quite expensive and probably couldn't happen. But we have a volunteer come to us and said, I love sailing. I have the equipment. I can take people out. I can teach them to sail. So then we just train them on how to be a representative and an ambassador and volunteer for Recovery Beyond, and how to run a safe activity. Now we have sailing. And we have stand-up paddleboard. I mean, all these activities are starting to happen now as a result.
Yeah, you have everything, like pickleball. I think you guys went axe throwing a few years ago.
We have.
And zip lining and equine therapy. That was a super cool one I was hoping to go to, but I was booked elsewhere. I was just like, there's so many different things. There's something for everyone.
There is. Yeah, I mean, talking about mountaineering, and that's kind of our roots, and so it's exciting to bring that back. But we don't want everybody to think like, I don't want to go climb Mount Adams. I don't want to climb Rainier. I don't even really want to hike. It's not really about that. It's really about, we know, and we do have plenty of activities that are indoors, so I don't want everybody to think that we only go outside. But we know how much that means to people. Like, that connection that you have with the outdoors and with each other is just really, it's different, and it's really powerful, and people feel it. You don't have to explain it to them. You don't have to show data about how it makes someone feel. They just feel it, and that's enough for them. So we want to keep people moving and get them active and get them connected. That isolation and loneliness that both Krissy and Olga talked about is really dangerous. And that lack of, that inactivity and boredom on top of that is, terrifying, and causes, many people to relapse. And so that's why we're talking about strengthening connection through this community that we have. And the catalyst is these events and activities, because people get excited about them. It's an easy way to break, kind of a non-threatening way to break people in, like bring them in, doing something that we all want to do, and it's all fun. And, it's hard to describe to people, but if you go on a hike and you spend hours with each other, setting up a camp and carrying, gear and doing really hard things, we as staff, me as the director, I don't have to prompt those conversations about recovery ever. I mean, it happens naturally. People, their guard is let down because they now trust somebody who's, going through this difficult thing with them, together with them, and then supporting them, and they know they'll be there for them.
Gorgeous. So how does someone get involved with Recovery Beyond, and are there requirements to become a member?
Yeah, so there's really, we say there's 4 ways to get involved. Of course, first is become a member, and I'll talk about that. Second is, become a volunteer. We have people that aren't members, aren't in recovery, that become volunteers, and that could be, anything from just helping us, with our activities and events. Like, we have this big Camp Recovery Beyond going this weekend. Requires a lot of help and a lot of setup and takedown. if you want to just show up and we kind of say hey, put me in, coach, just give me some guidance, tell me what to do, show me where to go, then, they can do that. The third way is they can become a donor. Like about half of our funding comes from grants. We're very fortunate to have grants with King County, with the Healthcare Authority, and with Elevated Health. But the other half comes from private donations. That's what makes all these programs and activities possible. So you can become a donor. And the last is, we have partnerships with other treatment programs and other providers all over Western Washington. There's a lot of services that we don't provide. Right. We need to provide to our members. And then conversely, that is the same with, other programs that are looking for an outlet to send their members to. So you could, partner with us as a community partner and/or as a sponsor.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me today for this episode of King County Recovery Conversations. And KCRC is partnering with Recovery Beyond on
which we're very proud of.
Our next big event, Recovery Day at the Mariners. And I do have on last year's Seattle Mariners Recovery Day shirt, just in case you wanted to check it out, because everybody that attends our event and goes to T-Mobile will receive one of the 2024 Recovery Day shirts. So please join us on September 15th. It's our National Recovery Month activity for the Washington Recovery Alliance, KCRC, and you'll find Bill and me and a whole bunch of our friends there. There's a rally in the morning, a march to the game, and then all kinds of things that happen in the ballpark, including a really cool, I just saw it for the first time, recovery video that'll be shown on the Jumbotron, and people in recovery throwing the first pitch, and lots of community resources. Between now and then, we have International Overdose Awareness Day on August 31st, and some of our local community partners are holding events. Evergreen Treatment Services is holding an event on August 29th at Westlake Center, and on August 30th, Vocal Washington and several other organizations, King County Public Health, will be holding an event from 3 to 7 at Cal Anderson Park. You will find KCRC there, and we hope to see you. We have a podcast episode from a year ago, August, with Brad Finegood and Millie from FUC, Fentanyl United Crisis Coalition, talking about stories of loss and hope and their personal experiences losing someone to overdose. So that's what we have for you today. Again, just a wonderful, heartfelt gratitude to everyone joining me in the studio today. I'd also like to thank Orbit Audio, which is our production team, and King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division, who helps make this podcast possible. Until we meet again in 2 weeks with another story of resilience, hope, and healing, be well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.